Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about absolute value. So let's first discuss what does absolute value mean, and then we're going to look at what it looks like mathematically. So you may have heard absolute value a couple of times in your life if you're just getting to high school, and probably absolute value has related to the number line in your past education. Whenever we talk about something like this, a number line that has positives and has negatives. Because absolute value relates the idea of how far you are away from zero on a number line. So let's think about something real quick. If I stood right here at this point on the number line, how far am I away from that zero? If I'm standing right here at the 3. Well, I'm 3 away, right? 1, 2, 3. 3 units away from 0. But if I were to stand on this side of the number line, right here, how far would you say I'm away? Would you say I'm -3 distance away? I mean, that's what it says on the number line. But does that make sense? Can I be -3 units away from some point? Not really in kind of a real world, right? In a practical sense, I can't be -3 units away. The fact of the matter is, I'm still just 3 units away, but it's on the other side of the number line. This is the idea of absolute value. Whether we are in the positive side or the negative side, absolute value says how far are you away from 0. So no matter what, it's whatever this number is, but it's positive. It's always going to be positive. That's the idea behind absolute value, is that the number is always positive. Primarily, absolute value is going to be useful in a very practical application sense in mathematics. So let's talk about what this looks like in math. You know, outside of this number line idea, the theoretical of absolute value, let's see, what does it look like? Well, you may already know this, but in case you don't, absolute value is expressed in an equation by what we call absolute value bars. These big, long bars or lines, we don't have any better word for them really, that go on either side of a number or an expression. And what we can do is if we put any number in these absolute value bars, let's say we put the number -40 inside those absolute value bars, what happens is the absolute value bars tell us, well, this is talking about, in theory, distance or something like that, right? Like how far is -40 away from 0? Well, -40 is actually just 40 units away from 0, but on the negative side of the number line, So the absolute value of 40, or of -40, is just 40. That's as simple as it is. Now, one way you can visualize this, one way that's worked for me in the past to visualize the absolute value kind of changing how the number is written, is to think that to get rid of these big absolute value bars, right? Especially if you have this in a big expression. To get rid of the absolute value bars, to get those to come down, you gotta take away whatever sign, that negative sign that it may have in front of it. Now that's not to say that there's always going to be a negative inside absolute value, because that's not the case. We could just as well write the absolute value of 10. Now, if we wrote something like the absolute value of 10, we're still asking the same question. How far is 10 from 0 on a number line? Well, 10, right? Like it's 10 units away. We don't have to change the sign of anything here because this number is already positive. We don't have to change that at all because remember, the big key to absolute value is the answer is always going to be positive. So whether it looks like this with a negative inside those absolute value bars, or whether it looks like this with a positive inside of those, the answer will always be that number, but positive. It is possible, as we mentioned a little bit earlier in this video, to see an expression inside absolute value bars, something like this. 6 minus 13, all inside absolute value bars. Now in a situation like this, we would actually solve or evaluate that expression and then apply the absolute value bars. It's kind of like in an order of operations problem. You know, you have your very first step in order of operations being grouping. And absolute value is a type of group. So what we would do is we would look to the inside of that absolute value or the set of absolute value bars and go ahead and evaluate what's in there. Whether it's a 2-step expression or a 5-step expression, whatever it might be, we're going to go ahead and evaluate that. So in this case, it's pretty straightforward. We have 6 minus 13, right? Well, 6 minus 13, as long as my math serves me right, is going to be negative 7. So I'm going to evaluate this. 6 minus 13, get negative 7. Well, those absolute value bars are going to stay there for right now. And after I've finished simplifying everything inside of those bars, like I have, then I'm going to apply the absolute value to the number inside of there. I'm kind of going to get to take it out of the absolute value bars, if you will. And to take it out of the absolute value bars, all I have to do is make it positive. So positive 7. If this were in the middle of an expression with other stuff on the outside of it, like a big long equation, you're using your order of operations to solve it, and there just happens to be an absolute value in the middle, we would do this same thing. Solve what's in there, get down to the very end, and then take it out of the absolute value bars by making it positive, and we just substitute that into our expression and finish solving it regularly. There will be an example video with problems like that a little bit later on the channel though. We'll do one last problem here. So if we have an absolute value problem that looks like this, the absolute value of 3 minus 5 plus 10, right? Well, we got to solve everything in here. We only have addition and subtraction, so we're going to work left to right, just solving it one step at a time. 3 minus 5 is going to get us negative 2. So now we have negative 2 plus 10. Negative 2 plus 10 is 8. So we're left with the absolute value of 8. Now think about this. What would the absolute value of 8 be? What do we have to do to get it out of those absolute value bars? Yeah, that's right. We just got to make sure the number is positive. So 8. And the number doesn't actually change here, right? The point I really want to get across with a problem like this and doing a problem like this is that it is entirely possible to see a positive or a negative number inside of those absolute value bars. We just have to make sure the number that comes out of them is positive. So I've a lot of times seen students get to a part of the problem like this, where they have a positive number in there and they're like, that number's not going to change. Did I do something wrong? Because I feel like I have to change the number. And that's not the case. The point of absolute value isn't that you always have to change the number inside there. The absolute value bars just guarantee that the number coming out will be positive. Sometimes it's not going to change. Sometimes it will. But no matter what, once you evaluate or solve everything inside these absolute value bars, the number coming out is positive. If you have any questions about that, feel free to drop a comment below and I'll answer them if I get the opportunity to. We'll have another video at some point going over some slightly more difficult example problems with absolute value, so be on the lookout for that. All right, thanks for watching.